The distress call, the stars were quiet, like a giant ocean frozen in the dark. But through that endless silence came a faint cry, weak and broken, almost like a whisper lost in the wind. It was a distress call, a message filled with fear, pain, and desperation. It traveled across light years, moving from one lonely system to another. Most ships ignored it. Most empires did not even bother to decode it. To them, it was just another hopeless colony begging for help. And in the galaxy, hopeless colonies were left to die every single day. On a small alien outpost far from the core worlds, families huddled in ruined shelters. Children cried as the enemy fleet above the planet rained fire from the skies. The colony was burning, their defenses were gone, and their leaders had already sent one final signal into the void. No one expected an answer. They only prayed that someone, somewhere, would at least hear their voice before they were destroyed. The Galactic Council received the message but dismissed it in less than a minute. Another minor race collapsing, they said. Not our problem. The strong empires cared only for trade routes. For resources, for politics, no one cared for the weak. To them, one more destroyed colony was nothing new, but on Earth things were different. In a quiet command station deep beneath the surface, technicians picked up the signal. It was faint, cracked, and distorted, but the words were clear. Please, help us. They are killing us. For a long moment, the humans in the room just stared at the screen. The voice sounded so hopeless that even the coldest heart could feel the weight of its fear. The officer in charge, a gray-haired man with a calm voice, ordered the signal to be decoded and played again. The room fell silent as the alien voice echoed once more. A single cry for help, small, almost broken, yet powerful enough to silence everyone. Humanity had never been the center of galactic politics. The other empires thought of them as latecomers, primitive, too emotional, too reckless, but Earth had memories of its own, wars, invasions, tragedies, moments when no help came. Humanity knew what it meant to cry for aid and hear only silence, and because of that, humanity could never ignore such a plea. Within hours, the highest levels of Earth's leadership were informed. Generals, admirals, and diplomats gathered in a hidden chamber. The signal played again, echoing across the room like a ghostly reminder of suffering. Some argued it was not Earth's problem. Some warned that interfering would draw the anger of greater powers. But others reminded them of Earth's own history. How many times had their ancestors been abandoned? How many times had survival been decided by the courage of strangers? In the end, the decision was simple. Earth would answer. Not with words, not with promises, but with action. The leaders gave a single order. Mobilize the fleet. In secret, preparations began. Massive warships, hidden for years, were powered up. Hangars filled with fighters opened. Soldiers readied themselves in silence. No news leaked to the rest of the galaxy. No boastful announcements were made. Humanity did not shout about what they were going to do. They simply prepared to act. Meanwhile, the dying colony sent out their final messages. Their defenses had failed completely. The enemy burned their cities, their skies glowed red with fire. Whole families vanished in explosions. The colony's leaders told their people to hide, to survive as long as they could. But even they knew there was no hope. One young alien girl, hiding in the rubble with her younger brother, whispered a prayer into the night. Please, if anyone can hear us, please come. Her voice was not loud, it was not strong, but somehow it reached across the void and far away on Earth. Millions of human hearts heard it in silence. The galaxy laughed when rumors spread that humans had intercepted the distress call. Earth will do nothing, they said. Humans are too weak, too small. They cannot fight the great powers, but in the shadows, human fleets gathered, their weapons hummed with energy. Their engines roared in silence. The galaxy would soon discover that Earth was not weak. Earth was waiting. The distress call had been answered. The moment the first human fleet left orbit, a storm was born. A storm that would terrify the galaxy. And it all began with one cry for help. The silent preparation, Earth's answer to the distress call, did not echo across the galaxy with loud words. Instead, it moved like a shadow, unseen and unheard. The rest of the empires thought humans were staying silent, but in truth, Earth was preparing for something the stars had never witnessed. In a massive underground hangar, deep beneath the Atlantic Ocean, the first of Earth's hidden warships came alive, engines hummed, reactors glowed, and steel giants that had slept for decades opened their eyes. Soldiers marched in silence, loading weapons, checking systems. Their faces were calm, but their hearts carried a storm. Unlike the other galactic empires, humans did not parade their fleets. They did not waste time boasting or negotiating. Humanity worked in silence, and silence was far more terrifying than noise. Above the planet, hidden orbital stations shifted position. Thousands of drones activated, carrying strange new weapons. Some were railguns capable of tearing through the strongest shields. Others carried plasma storms powerful enough to melt entire fleets. Earth had built these weapons not for show, but for survival. The galaxy had laughed at their designs, called them outdated, too brutal, too simple. But soon, that same galaxy would learn how deadly simplicity could be. Rumors spread quickly. Alien spies reported unusual ship movements around Earth's system. A few council members whispered their concern. What if the humans are truly mobilizing? But most dismissed it. They are primitives, they said. They cannot stand against the powers of the galaxy. Yet in secret, the human admirals were already plotting their course. Every move calculated, every ship positioned with precision. Humanity did not prepare for war like others. They prepared like survivors who knew that failure meant extinction. One admiral stood before a vast display showing the alien colony under siege. His voice was steady. "We are not only answering their call," he said. "We are sending a message to all who watch. Earth does not ignore suffering, and Earth does not forgive cruelty." His officers nodded in silence. Each one understood. This was not only a rescue mission. This was a warning far away on the dying colony. The enemy fleet continued their assault. Cities were turned into ashes. Survivors trapped in underground tunnels begged for mercy, but none came. The invaders mocked them, broadcasting their screams across the stars. The Galactic Council watched but did nothing. For them, it was only entertainment. Another weak race crushed under the boots of the strong. But in the darkness of space, the first human fleet began to move. Giant carriers glided silently, their hulls dark, hiding their approach. Escort ships formed wings around them, like wolves protecting their pack. The fleet carried no banners, no songs, only the heavy silence of judgment. The young alien scout who had warned her leaders watched the human movements from the shadows. Her eyes widened, she whispered to herself, "The humans, they are truly coming." Her people laughed at her before, calling her foolish, but now she felt a chill. If the humans were moving, then something unimaginable was about to happen. On Earth, families said quiet goodbyes to their soldiers. Fathers hugged their children. Mothers kissed their sons. No one spoke of fear, but everyone felt it. Humanity was not only sending ships, they were sending their will, their rage, their memory of every time they too had been abandoned. The council chambers, high above a golden city, filled with laughter as leaders dismissed the news. "Let the humans go," one of them said. "They will be crushed like insects." They did not know that insects sometimes carried fire strong enough to burn empires. Back in the Atlantic hangar, the last order was given. "Engines full power," the admiral commanded. The floor shook as the great ships rose. One by one, they vanished into the dark sky. Climbing into orbit, hundreds of ships followed. Silent, unstoppable, the stars above Earth lit up with trails of fire. Humanity had unleashed its armada, but still no announcement was made, no demand, no threat. The galaxy remained blind to what was coming. On the dying colony, survivors huddled in fear, unaware that across the void, salvation was already on its way. A single cry for help had awoken Earth, and now, humanity was moving like a storm across the night, and in the deep silence of preparation, the galaxy's fate began to tremble. The arrival of Earth's fury. The colony was breaking. Smoke rose in black pillars that turned day into night. Alien families ran through burning streets, searching for shelter that no longer existed. Above them, the enemy fleet circled like vultures, dropping fire without mercy. The skies glowed red, and the ground shook with every impact. Hope was gone, children cried in the tunnels. Mothers whispered promises they could not keep. Old men held weapons that could not pierce enemy shields. The invaders mocked them, broadcasting cruel messages. "No one is coming," they laughed. "Your cries vanish in the void." To the people below, it felt true. Then space itself trembled. At first it was only a flicker on the horizon, a ripple of light. The enemy commanders dismissed it as static, but then the stars stretched, bending unnaturally, as if the universe itself was tearing open in that moment. Silence fell across every battlefield screen. The invaders paused, unsure, and in that pause came fear. The ripple widened into a wound of fire. From that wound, shadows emerged. One ship, then two, then dozens, each one black as night, with armor that shimmered like forged steel. Their size dwarfed the enemy fleet. Some were carriers so vast they looked like floating cities. Others were warships bristling with weapons that no alien mind could recognize. The humans had arrived. The first enemy officer laughed nervously. Primitive ships. Nothing to fear, but then Earth's fleet moved in unison. Not clumsy, not desperate, but precise. Like blades drawn for execution. The largest ship, its hull engraved with silent scars of past wars, aimed its massive railgun at the enemy flagship. With one strike, the universe seemed to roar. A spear of light tore through space. The enemy flagship didn't explode, it disintegrated, vanishing in a storm of burning fragments. Half their fleet screamed in panic as the wreckage scattered across the battlefield. The survivors froze, their weapons fired, but their blasts broke against human shields like waves against stone. Then Earth's second strike came. Swarms of drones launched from hidden bays. Each one carried rail spikes that punctured armor as if it were paper. Enemy ships fell one after another. Whole formations cut apart in seconds on the ground. The alien colony looked up in disbelief. The sky that had burned with fire now burned with something else. Vengeance. They saw massive human carriers casting shadows across the battlefield. They saw enemy warships crumble in silence. For the first time, the survivors felt something return. A spark of hope. The invaders panicked. Broadcasting calls for retreat. They are too strong. Their weapons, nothing we know can stop them. But there was no escape. Human ships moved like wolves, circling their prey, every path closed, every retreat blocked. In the council chambers across the galaxy, leaders watched the feeds in horror. They had called humans reckless, weak latecomers, but now their fleet saw something else. Discipline, silence, precision, and destruction. Every empire watching the battle felt a cold truth crawl into their hearts. Earth had not come to beg. Earth had come to judge. One enemy captain screamed over the comms, "We surrender! We surrender!" But the human commander did not respond. Instead, the fleet advanced, weapons locked. Their silence was more terrifying than any threat. Inside the colony's ruins, the young alien girl who had prayed for help held her brother close. Tears fell as she whispered, "They came. The humans came." Above her, Earth's ships rained fire not on her people, but on their tormentors. Her cry for help had been heard. And the galaxy was learning the price. The enemy fleet shattered. Thousands of wrecks floated in burning silence. Survivors abandoned their ships, drifting helplessly in the void. Humanity's fleet did not chase them. They let the survivors live. So the story would spread. The galaxy had witnessed the impossible. Earth had answered a cry for help. And with one arrival, they had rewritten fear. The colony was saved, but the galaxy was trembling. For they now knew. When Earth moved, it was not as a weak world begging for a place at the table. It was as a storm, and storms could not be stopped. And this was only the beginning. The terror spreads. The battlefield was silent. Only the wrecks of burning ships floated in the void. The colony below still shook from falling debris. But for the first time in weeks, the skies were not filled with enemy fire. They were filled with Earth's warships, dark giants drifting like shadows of judgment. The survivors of the enemy fleet scattered. Their transmissions were frantic, desperate, filled with screams. "They came out of nowhere. Our flagship is gone. Our weapons are useless." Those messages carried across the stars, intercepted by traitors, by mercenaries, by spies within hours. The galaxy had heard the unthinkable. Earth had arrived, and Earth had destroyed an armada in minutes. The Galactic Council gathered in a panic. No one laughed now. Screens lit up with reports of Earth's fleet, ships that should not exist, weapons that defied logic, and a silence more terrifying than any war cry. Counselors shouted over one another, "This cannot be true. Where did they get such power? If they can destroy one fleet, they can destroy us all." But the truth was undeniable. Footage poured in from battlefield drones. The galaxy saw the moment Earth's railgun shattered the flagship. They saw drones swarm like a storm of knives. They saw surrender calls go unanswered. And worst of all, they saw the human commander give no speech. No demand, no threat, only silence. That silence became fear on the colony. Survivors crawled from the ruins, staring at the skies. They saw the black silhouettes of Earth's carriers blotting out the stars. Some fell to their knees, crying with relief. Others whispered in awe, "The humans came. They really came." They had been saved. But they also understood something deeper. Earth's arrival was not mercy alone. It was power, unstoppable and absolute. The enemy empire that had launched the attack tried to cover their shame. Their leaders called it an accident. We underestimated the humans, they said. This will not happen again. But their soldiers whispered a different story. In barracks and in ships, the tale spread like fire. Do not fight the humans. They are not like the others. They do not play by the Council's rules. Far away, in hidden corners of the galaxy, other oppressed races listened with wide eyes. For generations they had cried for help and been ignored. Now they whispered to each other. Earth answered. Hope flickered in places where there had been only despair. But that hope was paired with dread. For if Earth could destroy a fleet so easily, what would happen if Earth decided to move again? Inside Earth's flagship, the Admiral stood in silence. His officers reported enemy casualties, the colony's survival rate, and the retreat of the invaders. He gave only one order. Transmit this message across open channels, let it spread. The transmission was short, only a few words, but they carried like thunder across the galaxy. Earth answers every call. That single sentence shook empires more than the destruction itself. To the powerful races who built their empires on fear and dominance, it was a nightmare if Earth truly meant what they said. Then no oppression, no massacre, no cruelty could continue without risk of human intervention. And worse, Earth did not negotiate. They acted, and when they acted, planets burned. The Council debated furiously. Some demanded war against Earth before their influence grew. Others begged for alliances, whispering that it was safer to stand with humanity than against them. But beneath their words, fear ruled them all. None of them could erase the images of human ships moving like predators. None could forget the silence that followed their strike. On the saved colony, the young alien girl who had whispered her prayer looked at her brother. She no longer cried. She only stared at the sky where Earth ships drifted like guardians. They came because of us, she whispered. But now everyone will fear them. And she was right. Across the galaxy, fear spread faster than any fleet. Fear of the unknown power Earth had revealed. Fear of their silence. Fear of what would happen if the next cry for help reached human ears. The galaxy was trembling. But Earth had not yet spoken their final word. The lesson written in fire. The battlefield grew quiet. The last flames of wrecked ships drifted into the endless night. The colony below was still scarred, but it was alive. People who had hidden in the rubble stepped into the open air, staring at the human fleet that now filled their skies. For them, it felt like a miracle. For the galaxy, it felt like a warning carved into the stars. The invaders' empire sent desperate envoys. Their messages begged for mercy. They promised reparations. They swore to retreat from every captured world. But Earth's commanders did not reply. They knew that silence spoke louder than words. The wreckage of the enemy's fleet was already an answer. Across the galaxy, governments trembled. Leaders watched the recordings over and over. Some saw opportunity, whispering of alliances. Others saw danger, planning defenses. But no one could erase the image of one human fleet tearing apart an armada in minutes. The Council held an emergency session. The chamber that once laughed at humanity now shook with fear. If Earth answers every cry for help, one counselor said, then no empire is safe. Our control depends on fear. If Earth removes that fear, our rule will collapse, another shouted. Then we must destroy them now. But silence followed his words because deep down every counselor knew. If one human fleet could burn a system, what would 10 fleets do? On the colony, survivors gathered in the ruined square. They looked at the sky as Earth's ships hovered silently above them. The young girl who had prayed into the rubble held her brother's hand. She whispered, "They heard us. They came for us." Her voice trembled not with fear but with awe. To her, humanity was not just another race. They were guardians, but guardians with fire in their hands. The human admiral sent one final broadcast before the fleet prepared to leave. His voice was calm, measured, almost cold. "We do not seek war, but we do not ignore cries for help. If you bring fire to the weak, Earth will bring fire to you." Those words spread faster than any fleet. Carried by smugglers, spies, and frightened survivors, they reached the ears of soldiers, of rulers, of rebels, and everywhere they were heard. Hearts trembled. Some called it a promise, others called it a threat. But everyone agreed on one truth. Earth had changed the galaxy. The invader empire collapsed within days. Fear spread through their ranks. Soldiers deserted, commanders refused to fight. Their enemies, long oppressed, rose against them. And every uprising shouted the same words. Earth is coming. Do not resist. The invaders who had once been predators became prey, but Earth did not stay. The fleet escorted the surviving colonists to safety, then vanished back into the dark. They left no bases, no banners. No demand for tribute, only silence, only wreckage, only fear. And that silence was worse than occupation, because the galaxy now lived in uncertainty. When would Earth rise again? Which cry for help would they answer next? Was this only the beginning of their wrath? No one knew, and that fear was heavier than any chain. In hidden corners of the galaxy, whispers grew. The weak races prayed for the next time Earth would hear them. They carved human symbols into their shelters. They taught their children stories of the day the sky burned with black ships. They called it salvation, but in the golden halls of the powerful, the same story was told as a nightmare. They whispered of Earth's silence, their weapons, their refusal to play by the Council's rules. And in those whispers grew a single name for humanity, spoken with dread. The responders. Back on the saved colony, the young girl looked up as the last human ship vanished into the stars. She held her brother's hand tightly. They hurt us once, she said softly, and now the galaxy will never forget them. The story of Earth's answer became legend, a tale that spread like fire through every world. A warning carved not with words but with wreckage and ash. And in the endless night of the galaxy, one truth remained. One cry for help was all it took, and Earth had written the lesson in fire.